Hello, hi, and assalamu alaikum. I hope you all are fine and okay. So, today we are going to discuss Things Fall Apart from critical perspective, and I will first of all let you know the story of the novel, and then I'll bring into limelight the critical issues of this novel, right? In this novel, sorry. Things Fall Apart uh, helped create the Nigerian literary renaissance of the 1960s. This novel revolves around a character, Okonkwo, who is the leader of a group of the Igbo people, right? Um, Okonkwo, when he was young, so he becomes one of the greatest wrestlers in his community, in his clan. He believed that power, strength, and aggression, these were the most important qualities of a man, and he did not want to be seen as weak and fragile like his father Unoka. When Okonkwo became wealthy and respected, uh, he was quite famous in his community. He had 3 wives and he owned a lot of yams. But he was quite harsh towards his family, and he only showed anger. And he thought that anger and aggression are the only acceptable emotions. He was much worried about his son, Nwoye, who sometimes reminded him of his father's laziness and weakness, and he did not want his son to be like his father. One day there was a conflict with another village, and the community, the clan, decided to sacrifice a young boy whose name was Ikemefuna, who lived with Okonkwo's family. During his time with them, Ikemefuna became so close to Nwoye, and they also shared stories. Okonkwo also liked Ikemefuna, and his influence, and he saw him as his son. After 3 years, there was an elder person in that clan, and he told Okonkwo that they had to kill Ikemefuna. He advised Okonkwo not to be part of that killing because he considered him as his son, and it would be difficult for him to kill his own son. But Okonkwo ignored the advice because he did not want others to think of him as weak. So he was part of the killing of Ikemefuna. After some time, during a funeral ceremony, Okonkwo had a gun, and it accidentally went off, and with that he killed the son of the elder person who recently advised him. So this was considered to be a very serious crime. So Okonkwo had to leave his clan with his family and go into exile for 7 years. During exile, Okonkwo and his family worked hard to start a new farm in his mother's homeland. They faced difficulties, and Okonkwo felt discouraged, but he always looked forward to returning to his original home. During that time, white missionaries started appearing in the nearby villages, and there were rumors about their power and destruction. When they arrived in Okonkwo's new home, the people found their religion quite strange, but Nwoye was attracted to it, and he joined the Christians to escape his father's anger. After some time, when Okonkwo returned to his clan, he saw that the white men had changed so many things. There was a kind and patient missionary whose name was Mr. Brown. He had built a school and hospital, and many people enrolled their children in that school to become clerks or teachers. But soon Mr. Brown left due to his health issues, and there was another guy who was Reverend Smith. He took over. He was the complete opposite of Mr. Brown. He was strict, and he encouraged actions that that angered the rest of the clan. So there was a convert whose name was Enoch. When he disrespected the clan's sacred traditions, the clan burned down the church. The leaders were tricked by the district commissioner and insulted and beaten before being released for a fine after a fine was paid. The next morning, the clan leaders talked about war, but Okonkwo interrupted them. He attacked a court messenger out of hate, but none of his clansmen supported him. So, feeling alone, he walked away and hanged himself. The next day, when the district commissioner came for Okonkwo, the clansmen showed him Okonkwo's hanging body. They couldn't touch it because it was considered wrong for a man to take his own life. The district commissioner found this custom quite interesting and made a note of it for his book about Nigeria. And he planned to call that book The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Nigeria. So that was the story of this novel. Now, coming towards its critical perspective, first of all, we will be talking about the post-colonial perspective of this novel. Chinua Achebe is the father of modern African literature, and since the publication of the novel, this novel Things Fall Apart in 1958, he has been credited with being the key ancestor of the African literary tradition. He is an authentic writer, and his writing richly reflect his own realities. If we talk about the reason why he wrote this novel, there are many factors, many reasons which enabled him or compelled him to write this novel, right? One of the most important factors is his anger at the European representations of Africans in novels. Achebe declared that he wrote Things Fall Apart in order to reassert the African identity, and he wrote it as part of the growth of the Nigerian nationalism. This novel, Things Fall Apart, although it is not the first African novel, but it was probably the first work in which a novelist like Achebe, he represented the African experience in a narrative that tried to be completely different from the colonial novels. When we talk about post-colonial literature, many people believe that post-colonial literature focuses on responding to the dominant powers, dominant colonial powers, by questioning their colonial ideals. And when we are analyzing a post-colonial text, we consider important issues such as the use of native cultural traditions, the influence of colonialism on culture, psychology and politics, and the aftermath of colonialism. In Things Fall Apart, all these issues are effectively discussed and addressed. It shows the cultural traditions of the Igbo people, explores the impact of colonialism on their culture, on their politics and psychology, their mindset. And the best thing about this novel is that it is written in English, so we can also understand it, right? So in simple words, post-colonial literature is actually challenging the colonial ideologies. And this is what Achebe has successfully done in Things Fall Apart. He has portrayed the cultural traditions of the Igbo people, and he has also shown the impact of colonialism on their culture, right? In the first chapter of this novel, Achebe writes, among the Igbo, the art of conversation is regarded very high, and proverbs are the palm oil with which words are eaten. So he basically combines his English education with his Igbo traditions to tell a story that tells you the African history and perspectives, the real perspectives, right? Achebe uses English language to share his cultural experiences and to talk about the Igbo people. He uses the Igbo proverbs, folk tales, and some Igbo words in the book to give an African feeling, but it is still like clear for the readers, right? In chapter 2, he writes, when the moon is shining, the cripple becomes hungry for a walk, which is an African proverb. In chapter 3, he writes, a toad does not run in the daytime for nothing, right? This makes you feel African. The novel also shows how colonialism harmed the Igbo society, and it caused them to lose their culture and become unstable and have their beliefs suppressed, right? In the 20th chapter, Achebe writes, the white man is very clever. He came quietly and peaceably with his religion. We were amused at his foolishness and allowed him to stay. Now he has won our brothers, and our clan can no longer act like one. He has put a knife on the things that held us together, and we have fallen apart. Another thing is about religion. So Christianity also played a big role in colonialism. It rejected the native religions and forced the Western ideas, right? So in the chapter 16, Achebe writes, and when they heard the voice of the interpreter announcing the rank of the missionary, they surged forward. The priest himself stood up in amazement and at last gave a short laugh. These men are fools, he said. What did they expect to see? So the individualistic ideas of colonialism broke the close relationships and traditions of the Igbo people. Another point of this novel is that, as I earlier said in the previous lecture, that it was a response to a Heart of Darkness, right? So it is a response to Heart of Darkness, and because he criticizes Heart of Darkness for presenting a very stereotypical view of the Africans, right? And this is like, as we discussed in chapter 20, when he said the white man is very clever. So he is clever because he has done this thing to the African. This novel, Things Fall Apart, it basically challenges these stereotypical views of the native Africans, and Achebe quite vividly portrays the devastating impact of colonialism on the Igbo people, and he makes a very clear contrast between the pre-colonial Africa and the colonial existence. Thank you very much. Take a very good care of yourselves. See you with another perspective on this novel in the next lecture.